Let's start with generative AI and what it means for the future of work. It feels like we're not really expecting AI to take the place of humans, or are we?
So I'm a firm believer that AI and the future of work is about human augmentation rather than human elimination. And I think if we look to history and a lot of the research that's coming out, we're actually expecting a net positive impact on job creation as a result of AI. New skills, new roles created, and that's going to have a positive impact over the displacement that we can expect to see. However, I do think there are some kind of critical success factors or enablers that have to be in place to manage in this new human augmented world. For me, it's really important that you've got the right learning infrastructure to support people to take on these new roles, to reskill themselves and instill a culture of lifelong learning, when we know that people are going to have to adapt and avoid that displacement. I think secondly, really valuing those kind of innate human leadership qualities of curiosity, empathy, humility. I think when we've got the opportunity to have higher value human interactions, because we're taking away some of the more mundane tasks from people, we've got an opportunity to really step up on some of those human qualities. And the final one I'll talk about is adoption. So much great hype and so much promise that generative AI can bring to the workforce. But I think unless we invest in actually adopting and helping with the change management and making these tools and practices part of people's everyday working life, then there'll just be another shiny thing or an investment that isn't made most of.
That is a worry. Thank you. And thinking about the NextGen worker, how does the C-suite need to start preparing for that? What do you think it means?
So I think in the same way that generations and their socio-economic environments have always impacted the world of work, I think the C-suite really need to pay attention to Generation Z that's coming up through the ranks. They're a group of people who have entered the world of work with climate crises, with global lockdowns, economic instability, and they're actually kind of fundamentally trying to reshape and reset that relationship between employer and employee. So if I think of some of the important things for this generation, purpose and balance. So purpose being around the organisation standing for something. If we look to Patagonia, who have recently come out to say that all of their future revenue is going to be reinvested in climate change. If we look at all of the organisations that are now fighting to get B Corp status, that sense of an organisation that stands for something that's more than just their bottom line and is having an impact on some of these huge topics they see around them is really important. And secondly, balance. So I think gone are the days where this generation are willing to kind of really invest in work and really work hard and put in the hours. One reason being that they can't see that what they put in is what they get out. So the boomers were able to work hard, get their mortgage, have a nice retirement. For this generation, they can't see that line of sight. And so we're starting to see trends around things like quiet quitting, or lazy girl jobs, all pointing to the idea that this generation aren't willing to go the extra mile because they can't necessarily see what the benefit is. And so for them, they really want to recontract on what work as a component of their life looks like and really reset that balance between work life. So I'd say those are the two key factors that if I were kind of in many of the audience's shoes right now, I'd be thinking about how do we really rethink what our purpose is, and how do we also start to rethink about this recontracting that next generation are going to want to have.
Purpose and balance. Do you want to just explain lazy girl jobs? Because I'm not sure everyone will know what it is.
Yeah, it's a phrase that's come through, and it's around finding a white collar job that you can turn up to, do your kind of allotted hours and do no more, very similar to quiet quitting. And the idea is that people, this generation, are almost glamorizing the idea of not working too hard. It's counter to what we've seen in previous generations of really wanting to accelerate your career, work hard, put the time in, work the extra hours, kind of a real counter culture to that that's coming through.
It's really different to work hard, play hard, isn't it?
Yeah, really different.
Yeah. Lots of my clients are asking about productivity. Given what you've said, we can understand why. And possibly the role of generative AI in measuring it. What do you think around that?
I think it's a $1 million question around productivity. For me, I think now is an opportunity to really rethink how we think about productivity. In many ways, we're still clinging on to sort of the Taylor-Smith view that if we take out tasks, we'll be able to produce more output. Whereas actually we should be thinking about, if we're using AI, how can we create more purposeful working environments? How can we enable people to have those higher value human interactions? And how can we make sure that we're introducing productivity and technology tools in a way that liberates us rather than holds us and shackles us down to work? So I think we've all felt the pains of being always on, and that actually things like emails and the cloud, which were meant to increase productivity, have actually meant that we're in this position where we can't switch off. So I think the next wave of productivity needs to be in service of liberating us, helping in support of the next generation who really do want that balance, and enabling them to do more purposeful work.
There is a risk of digital overload, isn't there, for sure, as we move into a digital first, always on world. So more thoughts on how we avoid that?
Yeah, I think digital overload is something that we've all felt, particularly during the pandemic, working virtually, multiple Slack, Teams, Zoom, texts, WhatsApp messages coming through to you. And again, the irony is that a lot of these tools have been brought in service of making our lives easier and in service of making us more productive, but actually are starting to create this sense of digital overload. I think to overcome this, there's a couple of key areas for organisations to think about. And one is really about, what is that digital employee experience? So we often think about employee experience from a more traditional lens in terms of your value proposition, your offer. But actually, with so much of our time being spent digitally, how do we make that digital experience as easy as possible? And how do we make sure that the tools we're introducing are actually needed and wanted by the people that you're offering them to?